Hey everyone, I'm Calm. Everyone loves a good tier list, and everyone seems to love a bad tier list as well, so here's my tier list of the 6.2 Crystal Conflict jobs. This list is created with Diamond and Crystal level games in mind, and would definitely look different if taking into account lower tier play or competitive tournament organized mode. So with that in mind, let's get started. Now, I'm still a relatively new face to a lot of you, and you may be asking what qualifies you to make a tier list. And very quickly, first, I made it up to rank 15 last season in the Crystal Data Center. Second, I'm currently grinding through the Crystal Conflict Iron Man, where I've pushed 6 different jobs from Bronze to Crystal, and I'm currently working on my 7th with the intention of pushing all 19 of them. And third, I'm one of the head mentors for the PvP Revival Discord community, so it's vital for me to know as much as I can about each job in order to help others improve when they come and seek help. So the combination of those 3 things makes me feel confident that I can provide you a tier list of reasonable value. So let's get that list going, starting with the tanks. The usefulness of a Paladin varies greatly depending on the team they're on and whether people who are covered by the Guardian ability know they're free to use their elixir. Paladins have strong survivability tools, good crowd control options, and their limit break is extremely powerful, making them immune to damage and reducing damage taken by nearby enemies by 50%. On a good team, a Paladin buys so much time that they're absolutely S tier and the strongest option of all the tanks. On a bad team, the Paladin can certainly feel like a B tier job, but as more and more people get PvP experience, Paladin has started to separate itself as the superior tank choice, and I'm definitely putting it in the S tier. Warrior's biggest struggle in 6.1 was survivability. They had big AoE cleave and could do aggressive single target damage with their limit breakup, but their defensive options were lacking. Their buff to bloodwetting healing from 75% to 100% alleviates that problem, and they still have great damage and utility, with Bloata into Primal Rend being a highly effective way of setting up kills. Warriors for me are A tier. I've pushed Dark Knight from Bronze to Crystal and the job just felt clunky to me. 3 best buttons all felt bad to press. The AoE draw-in effect of Salted Earth is amazing, but server ticks make timing Salt and Darkness to bind people in place feel awful, and it's way too easy to whiff. Shadowbringer does big linear damage, but costs 20% of your health to do so, so having a feel for when you're safe to press it is a huge part of mastering the job. And Quietus does big damage and big healing, but the animation delay causes its heal to tick well after the ability is used, making it unreliable as an oh shit button. The job has its S tier moments for sure, but on average to me, Dark Knight is B tier. Gunbreaker is a flexible job thanks to its draw and junction ability. The tank junction ability Nebula gives a powerful defensive option, and the DPS junction ability Blasting Zone paired with double down and limit break can quickly clear out anyone standing on the crystal not paying attention. Unfortunately, the healer junction is bad. In a mode where burst damage is king, an 8k heal with a 3k heal over time is super underwhelming to say the least, and on top of that, having 0 crowd control options outside of the limit break stun provides 0 utility. Their burst damage is incredible, but they don't have much beyond that. Additionally, if the enemy team doesn't have someone playing the role you're looking to junction, you lose access to that ability entirely. They have S tier damage output for a tank, but enough flaws that I'm gonna put Gunbreaker in the B tier. Moving on to healers. White Mage was A tier last season, being propped up by the best crowd control in the video game. The biggest issue it had was low damage potency. Afflatus Misery and Seraph Strike both received potency increases, while Aquaveil and Cure 3 also received healing potency increases, so now they're more useful outside of their limit break windows and when Miracle of Nature isn't up. The only nerf to White Mage was Miracle of Nature's range being cut from 25 yards to 15, but unpurifiable crowd control is still unpurifiable crowd control. S tier. Scholar is the job that took me the fewest number of games to get to Crystal with when I pushed it in the Iron Man. It does big dot damage, and that dot also reduces the damage dealt by anyone afflicted by it. Likewise, the shield from Adloquium can be spread to increase the damage output of your own team, and Mummification reduces healing received, providing even more value. Scholar has a ton of utility, but lacks burst damage in a mode that lives and dies by it. It's strong, but not quite at the top. It's going in the A tier. Astrologian definitely needed some bonk. The Spire was one of the most high-value buttons in the video game, and with 6.2 it no longer exists. The replacement cards are both still reasonably strong, and are the Bowl, which reduces damage taken by 10%, and the Arrow, which reduces cast and recast time by 10%. This may have been the pound-for-pound strongest overall job prior to 6.2, and with its heavy burst damage and burst healing potential with Gravity, Macrocosmos, and Microcosmos, it's still very firmly in the S tier position. Without question, Sage is the best job in the game for making laser beam sounds while you play it. Everything's some kind of laser beam, it's awesome. It has a very high skill cap, requiring quickly moving Cardion around in order to have any effective healing. It has a powerful burst damage. Toxicon can make anyone it hits take 10% more damage, and their limit break can easily be the deciding factor in a team fight. It also has amazing mobility, and someone who knows how to use Icarus effectively can make themselves very difficult to kill. Big damage, big utility, amazing limit break, has to go in the S tier. Next up, we have the Melee. Monk was arguably the most useful job in competitive play last series. Their damage is a bit clunky with a 7-part combo, and dying with Riddle of Earth because of the animation delay for the heal can be super demoralizing, but it doesn't matter. If they want you dead, their limit break can make sure you are. Even on a 75-second timer now instead of 60, it's still very much S tier. I think Square Enix actually made a mistake with Dragoon. It was already S tier, just with a defensive weakness. Now that Chaotic Spring's healing has been increased by 50% and Horrid Roar's cooldown reduced by 5 seconds, their defensive weakness is much less of a weakness. So now Dragoon is even more S tier? Ridiculous burst damage, devastating limit break, improved defensive capabilities, all hail the new Dragoon Overlords, easy S tier. If there's a jack of all trades, it's Ninja. It can do big single target damage, it can do big AoE damage, it has crowd control, it has healing, it has stealth, oh, and the limit break can outright kill you if you're under 50% health. And they can continue the chain into other people and potentially clear out an entire team. Reducing the duration of the continuation part of the limit break doesn't matter. If you miss the third kill because the buff fell off, you still killed 40% of the other team with it by killing 2 people. The nerf makes practically no difference in Crystal Conflict, and Ninja is still very firmly S tier. Samurai's biggest weakness is its lack of defensive options. G10 reduces damage taken by 25%, which is underwhelming for a 5-second buff. Ogi and Kaishi have to hit 2 people in order to get the shields, and Oka can't be reliable as it's locked behind 1 step of the Kasha combo. Everyone knows how powerful the limit break is, but that's exactly the problem. Everyone knows now, and it continues to lose value as people get better and better at knowing how to play around it. Samurai can be really strong in a map where people are more likely to be clumped, but overall, to me, it's soundly B tier. And last for the melee is Reaper. It just feels weak. They live on the bottom of the charts, aren't really even slightly scary outside of their limit break, and don't really provide much outside of that apart from their Arcane Crest heal over time, which is actually a pretty powerful button, but only prolongs a fight without really contributing anything to winning it. It does have incredible burst when limit break is active, but if your target has guard or any sort of mobility available, Reaper's best addition to the fight is entirely mitigated. If a Reaper focuses you with their limit break burst after you're feared, press guard and you've turned the fight into a 5v4. The limit break definitely has value in certain places and often outright wins a close game going into overtime with a cheeky fear off the point, but beyond that, it just gets run over by everything else and shows time and again to be the weakest melee option. This is the first job I'm putting in the C tier. Next up are the physical ranged. I love Bard. Pre 6.1, it's what made me fall in love with 14 PvP in the first place. My Discord and Twitch icon are Edward from Final Fantasy IV. My YouTube banner at this point in time is the Apex era animation. Not to mention, as a former band director, the whole idea of playing a musical job totally vibes with me, so I want very few things in this video game more than Bard to be good, but it just isn't. The potencies are too low. It can be very effective at locking in kills by comboing Silent Nocturne into a 3-stack Imperial Arrow and Pitch Perfect, but it's going to contribute very little towards getting to that point. If you've got a team that can't put out pressure, you're going to find yourself waiting to line up kills that just aren't there. Bard can't put out enough pressure on its own to be considered a strong job, so it lands firmly in the B tier, and yes, I'm gonna go cry about it. I'm sad. Machinist is my personal underdog. I think it's really powerful. It has great damage output, each of its 4 tool abilities have useful utility with Analysis, and Analysis Air Anchor into Marksman's Bite is a very reliable way to kill a squishy 100%. Wildfire also provides some potentially high-level AoE burst. The problem with Machinist is the complete lack of mobility. If an enemy team dives on them, their only option apart from Guard and Purify is the Scattergun ability, which is crippled by server ticks. If you have a Machinist who knows how to position well, the job is fantastic, but the lack of mobility keeps it out of S tier, and I'll put it in with the A's. Next up, oh dear. Sorry, Dancer fans, this was Square Enix's most unfortunate design of the reworks. First and foremost, what are you thinking designing a range job with its spammable attack at 15-yard range when every other caster, ranged, and healer gets a 25-yard attack? Having 4 charges of Onavant gives them great mobility, but locking Saber Dance behind 2 of them is rough. Then, having a channeled ability where you can't recuperate in the middle of it, enough people at Crystal Rank know to swap to the Dancer who dives in and starts spitting that it's just not really viable to expect to be able to channel the whole thing and be alive at the end. And then on top of that, the limit break takes 2 full seconds to hit after use. I literally have time to see that an enemy dancer has pressed the button and use mobility to get away from the impending homing dance to try and prolong the duration of the charm. 90-second charge timer on the ability, and I literally have time to just run away from it before it procs. The job can do a ton of damage if left alone, but nobody's gonna leave you alone, and the fact that they didn't do any reworks with 6.2 tells me they aren't sure what to do to fix it. Dancer also lands comfortably in the C tier. C for channeled abilities are bad. And last but absolutely not least, time for the casters. Finally getting to my personal bread and butter, the Black Mage. Relatively tame outside of Limit Break, but holy gods, every 60 seconds when they get to press the angry button, their ranged cleave is unmatched. Frost provides great crowd control, Fire provides an extra hit of damage if needed, and Nightwing provides an extra burst of both. Shock is an amazing execute ability when combined with Ethereal Manipulation, which by itself is incredibly powerful with 2 charges, being able to dive in, use shock, and get out safely before anyone realizes that you're even in there doing damage to them. And Black Mage got a stealth buff with 6.2, where they made a change to Paradox so that it actually resets the 15-second timer on the Frost or Fire debuff on someone. It was S tier before, and the Paradox change is a slight buff even beyond that. 100% S tier job. I've played exactly 1 casual match of Summoner, and it's all I need. It has great damage, a good crowd control option, 2 stacks of an OGCD, Execute, and Fester, and Radiant Aegis, reducing someone's damage taken by 20% for 10 seconds with a 10,000 shield is a phenomenal defensive cooldown. And then Bahamut is just nuts. It's huge damage, but it's also disruptive by being able to cancel elixir casts. Phoenix exists probably, I think I've seen it twice ever. Not really necessary though, since the best crowd control in the video game is to kill someone, and Bahamut does that very, very effectively. And they got a slight buff in 6.2 by giving Slipstream a speed boost for anyone who's running through it. It just lacks the mobility of a Black Mage, but brings a powerful support option that Black Mage lacks. Summoner is absolutely S tier as well. And closing out this tier list is Red Mage. This was the job I first pushed a Crystal with, and is the job I always hope is the strongest. It's my favorite in the video game. It's certainly not bad. I love the feel of Black Shift and White Shift, providing flexibility for offensive and defensive playstyles. Resolution's silence on a 20-second cooldown is very powerful, and fantastic for punishing aggressive enemy dives, and Frazzle really helps lock in an opening team fight win. The dot from the melee ability does big damage and ticks even after guard goes up as long as you hit them with the melee ability before they guarded. Throw Flare on a clump of enemies is big burst, and their Limit Break when used properly can rock an entire team. The Limit Break is slightly less potency than the Dragoon Limit Break, but they can't see it coming. You have the added element of surprise. The 2 weaknesses are that it absolutely melts, and it has awkward escape mechanics. The fact that Red Mage has to backflip off of someone and that you have to aim it accurately causes it to die far more often than it would otherwise. If they change the backflip by taking away the 4,000 damage it does, but allowing it to be used freely, that by itself would move Red Mage up an entire tier. It's a high risk, high reward job, but is just a bit too squishy and easily punished. Red Mage closes out this list in the A tier. Now that I've built the list and can look back at it, it really does reflect the way I've felt about job balance throughout the first 2 seasons and into the 3rd. It really does feel like a lot of jobs have the ability to feel overpowered, and even the ones that are lower in the tier list have their time to shine like an S tier. A Dark Knight paired with any AoE burst can play like an S tier, a Samurai hitting a 3-person limit break and 100% win a game by itself, and I've had games on Bard where I've made people vanish from 50% health with silence into bursts that they may not have gone down otherwise. I feel like the overall balance is actually really good. A few adjustments definitely need to be made for Reaper and Dancer, but even those have their value and both have seen play in tournament settings. This list is entirely based on my opinions, taking into consideration all the games I've played with and against each job. Let me know in the comments what you agree with and disagree with. I'd love to hear other perspectives, especially from the people who play the jobs I've thrown into the basement of the tier list. Make sure to click the subscribe button to get notified when I release videos, which include guides for every skill level and VOD reviews of high-level gameplay where I talk through my decision making over the course of a match. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, happy hunting!